Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kizma, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can have the mindset to get your life and business set.
As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to the podcast, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you want to get the inside info for this and every episode, as well as some free gifts, go to illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. And now let's dive in to get your mindset for your life and business set.
Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kizma. I am Kizma and we are here in our Attitude Adjustment series. Oh, this has been so much fun. And if you haven't listened to the first couple of episodes, go back and make sure you catch those because we're talking about the attitude of prosperity. We're talking about the attitude of life. And today's episode is all about the attitude of action. And as you know, action is the insignia of life. If we stop acting, if we stop moving, we no longer exist.
Kaput.
Hello, Nick.
Hello, Kizma.
What's going on?
Well, this is going on.
This is going on.
Podcast is going down, man.
And I'm holding my information crystal.
This is a pretty amazing crystal.
I know.
Yeah.
It's a Lumerian crystal. It's got these cool little patterns that are encoded with information. So if I completely bliss out during this episode and start oming or saying some weird something other language,
You might start speaking in tongues.
just know I've been taken. I've been taken by the crystal people.
It's good to know.
Okay, I'm going to set it down now. It's enough information.
It's a lot. It's got a lot to say.
Okay. I'm back.
It's good to have you back.
Yeah.
This is going down. You know, we're in episode 3 of Attitude Adjustment, and I'm excited about how this is unfolding, and then there's another one coming. I think I have some ideas. And lots to talk about with attitude because it is kind of a big thing. Attitude is kind of a big deal.
Attitude is an energetic container of how you perceive and experience your life.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times it gets overlooked to be like, oh, you need to adjust your attitude, and you're just like I'm fine, Or
it gets this negative connotation, like, oh, he's got a bad attitude. Why not? Ooh, I'm going to have a prosperous attitude. I'm going to radiate a prosperous attitude.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a really good way to look at it.
Your attitude has a lot to do with your presentation, who
absolutely.
you are, what you're creating.
And that's why, because attitude is reflected then through your posture, your body language.
Your stance, your inflections.
It's reflected through your eyes, the words that you choose, all those things.
Those things.
It's this huge energetic container that really is going to deal with how you do life. And I don't know about you, but for me, we've got whatever time we've got here. It's a super, super precious gift. I want to do life to the fullest, and I want to have a really good time doing it, and I want to help some folks along the way.
Absolutely.
Have more fun too, because it's fun to have more people having fun.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when I think about attitude, it's like, okay, well, how can I, what can I do to have more of that, and have a really great attitude?
Yeah, man, life is too short to be stuck in a crappy attitude. It's just too short.
Well, we talk about action, and I think a lot of times that is related to work. When people think about action, they often think about work, productivity, and those sorts of things. And I think that's important. What is your attitude towards work? How do you feel about work?
And it's interesting that we always call it work.
Yeah, but does it? But that's kind of my point, though. Is like work has become kind of a dirty word sometimes.
Yeah. Instead of, I'm going to go accomplish things.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the office where I accomplish things and I am productive and I'm serving an ideal or a company. I know it sounds a bit lofty, but just think how many times I got to go to work. Oh, I got to get work done.
Yeah. And it doesn't always feel like
jive.
It gets kind of heavy. It's like, oh, I got to do this thing. It's like this thing that you have to do. And then all of a sudden you're spending you spend like a third of your life, working or more, depending on what you do. And that's a lot, so your attitude towards work and towards productivity and towards the actions that you're taking in your life is going to change the game.
It totally is. Now I want to kick it off with a myth buster.
Okay.
So, we talk a lot about energy and spiritual teachings in our coaching businesses and training businesses. And I know that there can be a lot of of spiritual communities and teachings out there where it's very common to meditate for an hour, 3 hours a day and just kind of bliss out. And so I am here to say that let's put it this way, the most spiritual people on the planet, the most highly evolved people on the planet are in action. They are not sitting in the woods and meditating for 3 hours a day. They are of service. And they are doing this with an attitude of service, and they're doing this with peace in their mind. You mentioned dynamic action on the last episode. That's the dynamic action.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because some of the most spiritual people that I know, it's tough for me to keep up with.
They don't stop.
It's like, wow.
Yeah.
You can accomplish a lot in one day, man.
Exactly. Because there's an intense alignment. There's a right focus. There's a right action. There's a right attitude of creating and serving and attracting and allowing. It is not checkout time. It is check-in time.
Yeah. And I think when we talk about the attitude towards action and work in particular, if you're really bummed out with what you're doing, there's something to be explored there.
Totally.
And I think it's not necessarily about what you're doing. First and foremost, it's not what you do, it's how you do it.
It's not what you do, it's how you do it.
Right. First and foremost, that's the number one thing is like, okay, if you're working a job that you're just not really enthused about, okay, maybe you've been there for a while and it's just not really feeding you in certain ways, and that's cool. It's like, it's so easy to get stuck in the drudgery of that, and then work becomes work,
right?
And you miss the little ways that you can help lift other people's lives up, lift up their day, contribute value to their life, do something meaningful that will leave them with a smile. And you can do the exact same thing that you've been doing for as long as you've been doing it in a slightly different way that will add so much more sparkle to it.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's just that little bit. I think we talked about this in the last episode where sometimes it's just that little bit that brings that joy back into what you do.
Exactly.
But I think joy is such an important part.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to lose it when you're moving at the speed of life and focused on getting to the next thing.
And joy is easy to lose when one is being critical of self or others. So another really strong spiritual teaching is self-condemnation or condemnation of others is going to just squash your attitude.
Yeah.
It is going to bring it down and put it into that mucky quicksand we talk about and eliminate and take away joy in your life.
Well, yeah. And this, you're so right about that. And it's funny, like where if you happen to be a person where you're like an overachiever, and really, you thrive on challenging yourself and these sorts of things. It's super easy. I think it's even easier to get into that self-frustration because you set the bar so high of like, I'm going to do this and this and this. I'm going to get all these things done. And then you don't. Right. And you fall short. And it's like you set up that pattern of essentially every day falling short. And at a certain point that gets kind of old.
Yeah.
And it just, it's like, well, I'm never going to get there, so it's kind of, it can be really frustrating. So I think that's an important part with action is to really, and that's something that we're going to talk about in more depth here, right here is really taking action in a way that's congruent with what you are.
Yes.
Really congruent with your nature. And when you do that, you have way more access to your own, say, talents, I think is a good way to put that.
Talents, your motivators, right? Your special features.
Yeah, but to do things in your way becomes really important.
Well, we all know what it's like to try and do something the way someone else is doing, and it feels so off that it's painful.
Right.
Or we're not keeping up with someone else's supposed, whatever success, and then we feel less than. And it's just, it doesn't work when we start comparing.
Right.
And you had mentioned, we were talking about all this, it's like we're drivers of the vehicle of life, but we're also driving a particular model of vehicle.
Right.
We are a certain model, each and every one of us.
Yes, incredibly
different
unique
components. Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
incredibly unique. Definitely not stock production.
We are not a stock production, right? And so I think it was, you mentioned this earlier, Nick, it's like if you're a sports car and you're trying to go off-roading up the mountains, it's not going to go so well.
Right. Or let's think about it like this. Yes, like let's take that one step further. It's like, okay, like you're a sports car. Like you look at a human being, certain human beings are designed for certain things and you can see it in their nature.
Right.
Right? A super small, frail person is really not designed to be doing heavy manual labor all day long every day. They can do it, but that's going to take a different toll on that person than somebody who's big and burly and built for that kind of thing, right? And it's nothing wrong with, there's nothing wrong with one or the other. Nothing wrong at all. It's just understanding that, okay, well, same way. It's like, okay, well, you know, if you've got like, if you're a sports car and you really want to go like, you really want to be the off-road person. And so you take your sports card and you go try to like learn how to off-road in your sports car, you're going to wreck your car.
Exactly.
Like that car is not going to be happy and you're not going to be happy. You're probably going to be really frustrated because everybody else who's got their off-road vehicle is rocking and rolling all over the place.
Well, and if you have an off-road vehicle and you go on a sports car racetrack thing trying to go around the bend.
Trying to compete against Ferraris, you know, you're also going to be very disappointed with your action there.
Exactly.
You know? So I think there's a big part of this that's recognizing what you are.
Yeah.
You know, what kind of car are you? Like what kind of vehicle do you have?
Yeah.
And doing it in a way that's more congruent to you.
Exactly.
Now, you know, it's interesting, like, and I'm curious about your experiences with this as a musician. So in classical music and in playing the flute like you did, you know, there's a certain way of doing things.
Yeah.
And there's like, okay, we'll do it this way. And they show you how to do it. And so it's like you're doing it their way. But was there a place where you really adapted that to your own way in that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think what makes musicians stand out is when, let's just say technically, you know, you reach a certain level, one has to do it the way, say, a conductor wants or the level that is expected.
Oh, sure.
But when one can turn a phrase in their own way and it's still very polished and in the same vein or style of the music, you got something special going on.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. Or even in technique of like, I think for me, it was very much about, you know, my teacher could try to describe to me all these different things. You know, like this is technically what you do with your body or with your, you know, with your mouth in order to make this specific kind of a sound. But at the end of the day, it's like, here's the sound. Go make that sound.
Right.
You know, and you play it and mimic it. Yeah. And come back to it and try to, you know, do what you need to do and find your way to create that sound and to do it efficiently.
Right.
You know, and I think that's really like that method speaks way more true to how we do life.
Right.
You know, here's the thing. Here's the goal.
Right.
This is what we want to accomplish. Go figure it out.
Exactly.
You know, and that's a beautiful thing. And to do it using your own resources.
Right. So let's talk about some of the different ways people take action. What's different about different people's cars really in human form?
Okay, well, you can look at just like physical stature. You know, they're really big people.
Right,
you know?
doing big things physically.
Yeah, who can do that. You know, then there's, you know, more wiry people. There's people that are, you know, very, very like direct in how they approach action. Do it, get it done, go, go, go. There's people that more see.
Right.
They take a more panoramic perspective of things, take it in, they create some order around that, you know, and then delegate from there. For some people, that doesn't come naturally at all.
Right.
At all. Other people are like, they need to be told what to do.
Yeah.
And when you tell them what to do, they go do it. And they're super happy.
Yeah.
Being told what to do and being like, yep, okay, cool, I got it.
Because they get to be of service and they know what to do and complete, and it feels really accomplished.
Right. See, but what's interesting about that is I think that one in particular is one that a lot of people access inauthentically. And by that, I mean, it's like an insecurity that I can't find my own way. So why don't you just tell me what to do and give me the answer? And that may not be really authentic to the way that you do things.
True.
Right. But you just need that because of insecurity.
So this inauthenticity, let's talk about this a little bit, because I know we're going to mention an assessment tool that our listeners will have the opportunity, if they're interested in taking. But when we're operating from an inauthentic state, what happens to the vehicle of us, of our human?
Well, you'll experience energy drain. So you're
Fatigue, burnout.
Yeah. It's like it's being on the way to burnout, essentially. When you're starting to experience a lot of drain in your life, you can bet that there are things showing up for you or you're trying to do things in a way that are not authentic to who you are.
Right.
And that can come from training, of just like, well, this is the way that we did things in my family. And I'm going to do it that way because that's the way it's always been done. But it may be really, really different from who and what you are, may not be authentic to you at all.
Right.
So I think it's funny, a lot about a lot of our audience, a lot of the people that tend to find us, they feel sometimes like the black sheep. They're like, oh man, like, who are these people in my family? Like, so weird. Like, who am I? Like,
how did I fit in?
Right. But they had to kind of find their way out of that to a certain degree. So that's really important, like sometimes it's through training, sometimes it's through cultural stuff of, we've been told through our media and through our families and through our friends and through this culture, who and what you're supposed to be and positivity, right? That we talked about in the very first episode of this is one of those things. Like everybody has to be positive, we can't tolerate your negativity. Well, some people are negatively charged.
Right.
Some styles are more negatively charged. And like we talked about, you see and express what's not working first.
Exactly.
Okay, great. And you can also see, it's not that you can't see what's working, it's just that you happen to see that first because you're more negatively charged.
Right. And it's not a bad thing. It's like a polarity.
Exactly. And it's it's how you operate within that. And so really understanding your style and what drives that, what really keeps that car running smoothly and in the right direction.
Right. Well, I can share, I had a client come in who was trying to do things like you described, front and center and go, 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 go. And her style was to do things in more behind the scenes or to contemplate and do. So it wasn't like really driven, but it was a different sense of doing. And once she shifted that, it was like she had so much more energy.
Right.
Even though people around her were doing the do thing relentlessly, it was not her way of being. So the action she was taking was actually depleting her rather than getting the results that she desired.
Right. That's a really good example. And then the flip side of that is if you've got somebody who's a natural leader, who is a front and center type of person, and then they're stuck in the background.
Right. It's frustrating.
Just doing little things, or they're in really task-based kind of stuff. That's going to be really draining for them.
Exactly.
So those things are really important to understand about who you are and how you function. Like, what is the operating manual for your vehicle?
The operating manual. This is so good. It's an operating manual of life. And, there's another aspect too. I'm just going to bring it out. If you're interested, it's something called the Ultimate Life Tool. It's an assessment, and there's a link in our show notes if you're interested in registering to take it. There's an investment, but you will, in the show notes, you'll save a bit of money there, and it's so worth it. And there's something in the styles that is like the sparkle energy. So we talk about this with me because I will get downloads and then they'll be gone. And you're always like, wait a minute, Kisma's talking, write it down, turn on your recorder right now. And it's just, it's the download thing for me. It'll come and it'll be really awesome, but I won't hold on to it.
Right.
And that's just how I operate. Because if I held on to everything coming through me, I would be so congested.
Yeah. You get people like, oh, can you say that again?
Right. And I'll be like, nope. It's gone.
It's gone.
And this is just part of me. And I had to learn to accept that.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, so I got to write it down or I got to record it. But that's part of what this tool taught me about me. And it was actually okay.
Right. Yeah, it just helps you be like, oh yeah, I could totally get why I do that. And you bring up a really good one, is like, one of those is like, how do you, like, what's your disposition towards that? Like, do you see things? Like, do you just
visionary?
See, or do you, are you a thinker?
Right.
Do you really
or how do you think? Do you think quickly or do you process slowly?
Exactly.
And neither are wrong.
Right. Then none of them are wrong. Or are you more of a doer? Do you just get out there and just do?
Exactly.
And figure it out later? So it's like, okay, well, that's really, the book, what's it? Ready, Fire, Aim. That's a great book for you if you're a doer.
Yes.
Because that'll really speak to you. You'll be able to just go, take the action. Because essentially what that book is about getting out of constantly overthinking things and just taking some action, which is really good.
Right.
Really good. And if you're a doing type of person, you'll get that. You'll really, really get that. But if you're a thinker, like that's going to be
painful.
It's going to be a little bit of a different journey for you to really get what that's about. And it may not really reflect your style as much.
And it circles back. We'll talk a bit more about the tool towards the end, but it circles back to this, again, another teaching that we heard in India at the Vedanta Academy is right action.
Yes.
Right aim, right action. The right action is different for every person. It's like you come to the fork in the road. And you have to ask, is it this way or is it that way? Is this in line with my highest and best? And when you're clear enough and when you know who you are enough and you can ask that question, get that answer, you will continue to be in right action.
Right.
And right action brings energy and it brings the right results. And consistent action yields consistent results. It's just who's the driver of your car to what kind of consistent action? Because forced action is not right action.
Right. Some people need to take a nap every day.
They do need to take a nap every day. And it's fascinating how much better they are when they nap.
Yeah. And there's if that person is feeling like, oh, I should just be able to go all day like this other person, well, and feeling bad about taking naps and trying to get by without taking naps, you're just doing it the wrong way.
Right.
I don't know how else to put that. It's like, take a nap, that's okay. And if that's what really gets you through, not gets you through, but really helps you
helps you to re-energy and start the day.
Helps you to be who you really are,
Right.
Like those things are really important. There's a lot of different facets to that just in the style, like just in that part of who are you? Like, that's a different conversation. What are you?
What are you?
What are you? Like, what human being are you?
Yeah.
And then you can really take that, and once you're optimizing it, live your life in a radically different way.
So much better.
And oftentimes it's just minor adjustments, to how and what you're doing. But what's interesting about that is when you're being inauthentic to your style, is how draining that can be.
I think that's the key of this episode. When you're inauthentic to your style, you're human, and you're taking action, there will be such a great energy drain.
Yes.
And when you're authentic to who you are and you're taking action, that action is met with a peace of mind, and therefore the action is dynamic.
Yes. Yeah. Now, this conversation about authenticity is a pretty popular one.
Yeah, that word's used a lot these days.
It is, yeah, authentic, radical authenticity.
One of our isms.
Back in the day. And now, when we talk about authentic, I think it gets confusing for people because it seems to be a lot of times, it seems to be like permission to be like, well, that's just who I am, or that's just how I am, and it's like somehow is like a permission slip to just, not be your best self.
Right.
Let's put it that way,
exactly.
not really let your best qualities shine. And that's not really what we're talking about. What we're talking about in this conversation about authenticity is like really acting in alignment with your specific style. Right. So if you're a person who really thrives on making lists, then that's going to be really important to you.
Yes.
And it's something that if you neglect that, you're going to get drained and you're going to get scattered and confused, and your action is going to drop off and your energy is going to drop off. And sooner or later, that's going to take a toll. We'll talk about that in a minute. But really it's like, okay, great. If you know that you really do well with lists, that needs to be a really important part of your day.
Right.
You got your list in the morning. Okay, cool. How's that chunking out through the day? At the end of your day, are you taking the time to reassess that list so that the next day you hit it right out of the box rather than having to find your way again? That becomes really important. If you're a person who, really really just needs to be doing things, getting into that sense of accomplishment, or that real persistence, at really seeing something through and just doing. All right, well, you need to make that an important part of your day. And if you're stuck in a bunch of admin, not doing, or stuck in a place where you're constantly needing to just think about every last little thing, that's going to be tough on you.
It's going to be tough.
Because you really need to be in a position where you're just doing.
Right. And so let's circle back to this Ultimate Life Tool, because one thing I love about it, it describes what is your energy center. Like, how is it that you connect with the world? How is it that you receive and remember information? And some people are more emotional, some are more instinctual, some are more intellectual, and some are more movement. Like, those are the different doorways into the heart. And I know for me, when I figured out, when I took the test and I found out what I was, it just made so much sense, right?
Which is very important to you.
It is very important to me because I'm intellectually centered, and then when I work with clients and I know that, they're emotionally centered. And so they need to do X, Y, and Z to lift that up. Or if they're in overdrive, it's a fascinating tool that way.
It really is fascinating. Yeah. And understanding myself as more instinctually centered.
Yeah.
That really helped me a lot to recognize that I'll just get things. Like, I'll just know it. It's like, she's like right there on the surface. Great. Got it. And if I move on that or try to do that without it making sense to you, that's very disturbing for you.
It's very disturbing. Yeah, totally.
Well, it's like I've skipped some steps, and really, in order to connect to another human being in a full way, all of those pieces need to be in place in some way, shape, or form,
right?
To connect on all those levels. All those doors need to be open. And so, understanding where you're at with that and how you can utilize those to connect and relate to other people, to commit information to memory, and to really make sure that you're fully receptive.
Right.
That's important.
Exactly.
It's
important for couples. It's important for relationships, how we're expressing to one another. It's also interesting because you begin to understand what your talents or your features or the things that inspire and motivate one is. And I just love that.
Yeah. It's really beautiful. And there's so much, it just gives you a look at what you are and how you function in your life, from a very, very, very different perspective. When we talk about inauthenticity or trying to do things in a way that's not authentic to who you are, and the drain that causes.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like, when I understood I was intellectually centered, I knew why it was so important. And my days go so much better when I wake up in the morning and I study, because I start my day with that. And then the rest of the day is so much better.
Right.
If someone's very movement centered, they might have to wake up and start moving and do some yoga or run or whatever and get things going.
Right.
So, in essence, it's like, who are you? What are you? What kind of action serves you best? What is your right action to get your right result?
Yeah. Because if you're doing it long enough and getting into burnout or going through phases of burnout, what's interesting about this is energetically, what happens is as you deplete, you have like less gas in the tank, right? And if you're constantly running on empty and then just barely filling it up just enough, sooner or later, energetically, your container will collapse to the degree that it will manifest physical illness or disease or something of the sort. Like it'll have an impact on your physical body. It's not like attitude is not something that is just about your mind and how you feel and feeling a certain way or seeing things a certain way. Attitude will affect your physiology,
right,
given enough time. Now, it takes a little bit longer to get to that point. Oftentimes it will take some time. Like, you don't just suddenly, get ill with something like that. Have it just, it may seem sudden. It may come on suddenly and you feel like, wow, like, I didn't know where that came from. But I'll bet if you look back, you can see the drain happening.
Right.
And then it's like, oh yeah, and then it's basically a wake up call to say, hey, we need to be doing things a little differently here.
The action needs to shift.
Something needs to shift so that I can really be in a much more energy rich environment for myself, like really function in a way that is true and authentic to me so that I can really be fueling those specific drivers, those specific talents in a way that is going to lift me up.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Because it's like, oh, is it Einstein? If you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it's going to feel like an idiot. I'm paraphrasing. Einstein did not say
I'm sure he said that.
I'm pretty sure he didn't say it that way. But I think it was him that said that. All right, we're going to have to check our references on that one. But I know it's a thing. It's a thing. But at the end of the day, it's like if you judge a fish based on its ability to climb a tree, that fish is an idiot.
Right.
But it's a fish, man.
It's a fish.
Right?
It doesn't belong in a tree.
Throw that log in the water and it doesn't stand a chance against a fish.
Right.
And so it's being in an environment that it can really thrive in and doing things in a way that's really true to who
so
and what
important.
it is. So when you look at that, like it's such a major thing. And I think there's a lot of people in a world that is moving at the speed of life, that's really going so quickly that a lot of people do experience burnout or they get to certain intervals in their life and feel like, wait, like what the heck am I doing here? Or maybe I want to be doing something different, or just something feels off. Like, I don't know what that is. Or I'm working so hard to get something done and it's just not happening.
Right.
Well, you may very well be off-roading in your sports car.
Yes. That's such a great way to put it.
So knowing and having an operating manual, think about like what it would cost to take your car in just for a tune-up. Well, this is your human.
Right.
And that's a really important thing. And having a manual to that is pretty vital.
Yeah, totally. I love that.
And then certainly you couple that with the energetic tools that we teach and share that. And it just helps to, help everything to align like that much faster.
Consistent action.
It's really
creates consistent results.
About putting those pieces together.
So I think for those of you listening, one of the questions you can ask yourself is really, what kind of action do you take where you thrive and get results? When you ask that question, you can see when you head to burnout, you can see when you're comparing, or you can feel it when you're comparing to someone else's actions. So get really clear is like, what type of action do you take that creates this sense of accomplishment and is exciting and lifts up your energy rather than depletes? And for some people, that really is like being outside and farming all day or working all day and being with at the end of the day, they might be physically exhausted, but there's such a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
For some people, it's going to be on the computer, spreadsheets and this. If you did that to me, I would implode, like guarantee within 48 hours.
Yeah. There's the spreadsheet girl here.
I know. She's so cute.
She's so great. She sits in front of her computer and then she's got screens up and spreadsheets
she's
on her.
She's just doing it.
And every time I walk by, that's what she's doing. And I'm thinking like, wow, man, I'm so glad that I don't do that. But she's happy as can be. Yeah. And every time I see her, she's just chilling in front of me. She's having a good time.
It's so great. So we've got to define it. And so begin by asking. And if you think you need some help with this and you want to dive deeper, check out the show notes and go to the link, the Ultimate Life Tool. It's a bit of an investment, not much for what you get. Honestly, it's like, think about what you spend to get your car tuned up and to figure out what's going on. This is an operating manual for you.
For your
and
human.
So when you walk away with your own operating manual, it is the coolest thing ever.
It really is. If you're listening somewhere not on this page, it's illuminationacademy.net/INK093.
Good.
That'll be the page for this one. So it's really a powerful thing. It's beyond any kind of personality test you've ever.
Yeah. Once you go through the assessment, you'll get a report. We'll get the report. We'll send it to you. And then you'll go through about a 20-minute assessment with one of the trainers that just gives you tips on where to lift up your energy and avoid or stop energy drain.
Yeah.
So your actions are really vibrant.
Yeah. And even if you're feeling pretty awesome, that's
so cool.
Even more reason because you're in a strong state, you're in a powerful state to really dial that in and just be even more awesome.
Totally.
So that's important too.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah, it's super fun. I'm really excited about this. You're going to hear more about some of these things coming up, and it's a really, really neat way to understand yourself from a very different perspective. And then, like I said, we're always talking about spirituality, connecting that to the highest, and really recognizing that there's no mistakes.
Yeah. Exactly.
There's like human design, like you're not a mistake.
Right.
And there's nothing in you that's a mistake.
Exactly. I just want to bring out the best.
It's really about bringing the beauty forth.
Yeah.
It's almost like a gem, where it's cut in a way that is meant to bring that beauty out and to really let it shine. And that's such a beautiful thing. And that's really what this is about. It's not about fixing anything. It's really about being more awesome of who you are.
I like that. Yeah. Way to go, Nick. Yeah. Getting all gemstone there.
Well, look at me. Yeah.
You were holding the crystal with the information.
I did. I had the alien crystal for a bit.
All right, everyone. So just a little reminder, action is the insignia of life. And every moment of every day, just ask, is this the right action for me to take? And if you're interested in the Ultimate Life Tool, the link is in the show notes. And Nick, what's that? What is
illuminationacademy.net /INK 093.
093.
Episode 93.
Oh, I love it.
It's exciting.
Okay. Much love, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Share this episode with someone that you believe would enjoy it, benefit from it, and so much gratitude coming your way.
Namaste.
Hey, thanks for jamming with us today. And if you enjoy Illumination Podcast, please go ahead and share it with someone you love. Give us a rating, review, download our podcast. And remember, you can find us at illuminationacademy.net /podcasts. Talk to you soon. Namaste.